Nearly half of Gen Z has no emergency fund. But here is what is interesting. A lot of those same people with nothing saved, are putting rent money on meme coins, on prediction markets, on election bets. And if you ask them why, they will not say they are being reckless. They will say, what's the point of playing by rules that don't work anymore? That is not laziness. That is not ignorance. That is financial nihilism. And it is one of the most important economic shifts happening right now. And almost nobody is talking about it on a level that actually makes sense. So let us do that today.
The term financial nihilism was popularized by economist and market commentator Kyla Scanlon, and her definition is sharp. She described it as the belief, held by millions of young people, that the economic game is rigged, so traditional winning no longer feels real. Let that sink in for a second. It is not that Gen Z does not understand money. Studies actually show they are more financially literate than millennials were at the same age. It is that they understand money and have concluded that it does not matter how smart you are with it. And when you look at the numbers, it is honestly hard to argue with them. The average home price in the United States is now around $350,000. The average Gen Z worker earns somewhere between $35,000 and $45,000 a year before taxes. Do the math. Even if you saved aggressively 10% of your paycheck every month, you would need more than a decade just to afford a down payment on a starter home in a mid-sized city. Meanwhile, the stock market has become something that feels more like a casino than a wealth-building tool. Meme stocks, AI hype cycles, crypto crashes, retail investors getting wiped out while institutions walk away clean? So the question Gen Z is asking is actually quite rational. If traditional financial advice doesn't get me anywhere, why follow it?
To understand where Gen Z's relationship with money comes from, you have to understand what they grew up watching. When the oldest members of Gen Z were around 10 years old, the 2008 financial crisis wiped out their parents' savings. Their families lost homes, retirement accounts were slashed in half overnight. And the lesson they absorbed wasn't work hard and save. The lesson was the system can collapse at any moment, and ordinary people are the ones who pay for it. Then they hit adulthood right into a pandemic. Their entry-level jobs disappeared. Their internships got canceled. Their college experience was replaced by a laptop screen in a childhood bedroom.
And then something strange happened. The government printed trillions of dollars in relief. Asset prices, stocks, real estate, crypto, went through the roof. People who already owned things got richer. People who were just starting out got stimulus checks. Not enough to buy a house, not enough to build real wealth, but just enough to feel like the market was accessible, just enough to download Robinhood. And that is exactly what millions of young people did. By 2021, retail trading had exploded. Gen Z was buying GameStop not just to make money, but to make a statement. To say, we know the game is rigged, so we are going to play it our way. This is the moment financial nihilism stopped being a feeling and became a behavior.
So what does financial nihilism actually look like in practice? It looks like this. A 24-year-old in Austin, Texas, makes $52,000 a year working in tech support. She has no retirement account, no emergency fund, but she has $1,500 sitting in a Solana wallet, $300 in a prediction market on the next Fed rate decision, and she just bet on which political party wins the next Senate race. Is she irrational? Or is she just playing the only game she thinks she can win? Here is what the data says. According to a 2025 survey by the Financial Health Network, nearly 46% of Gen Z respondents said they did not believe traditional saving strategies would help them reach financial security in their lifetime. Almost half. And it is not like they are not spending. They are spending differently.
Research from Bank of America found that Gen Z spends more on experiences, digital assets, and short-term pleasures than any previous generation. Not because they are impulsive, because they have genuinely concluded that delayed gratification might not pay off. There is actually a psychological term for this kind of thinking. It is called hyperbolic discounting, the tendency to value an immediate reward much more highly than a future reward when that future feels uncertain or out of reach. And for a generation that watched the economy collapse twice before they turned 25, the future feels very uncertain indeed. But there is another layer here that nobody talks about enough. Prediction markets, sports betting, meme coins. These are not just gambling to Gen Z. They are participation. They are a way to feel like you have some stake in a world that otherwise makes decisions completely without you. When you cannot afford to buy a house, but you can put $50 on an election outcome and wake up to $200, that feels like agency. That feels like winning. And the platforms know this. They are designed for it. Here is the metaphor that explains everything. In a video game, you do not build wealth slowly. You do not budget. You find power-ups. You exploit the mechanics. You grind the game until you find an edge, and then you run that edge as hard as you can. Now look at how Gen Z talks about money on social media. They call it running the meta. They talk about grinding the system. They describe crypto trades in terms of hitting a new level. When they lose money on a bad bet, they respawn and try again. This is not accidental. It is structural. The financial apps they grew up on are literally built like games. Confetti animations when you make a trade, streaks for checking your portfolio, push notifications that say your coin is up 40%, time to act. Dopamine loop, reward cycle, just like a slot machine, just like a video game. And here is the uncomfortable truth that older generations are only starting to wake up to. These kids did not arrive at nihilism because they are broken. They arrived here because the systems that were supposed to create upward mobility, education, work, saving, genuinely stopped working at the scale they once did. College costs 4 times what it did in 1980, adjusted for inflation. Housing has outpaced wages for 30 consecutive years. Social Security faces structural questions no politician wants to seriously answer. So when a 22-year-old looks at a financial plan that says, spend less, save more, and in 40 years you will have something, they do not feel inspired. They feel like they are being asked to play a game on a broken difficulty setting. Now here is the part where we have to be honest. Financial nihilism is not just a vibe. It has consequences, real ones. When people stop trusting traditional wealth building and shift to high-risk behavior, crypto, prediction markets, leveraged bets, the outcomes are not evenly distributed. For every Gen Zer who turned a meme coin into a down payment, there are dozens who lost rent money and had to call their parents, or who took out credit card debt to chase a loss, or who quietly racked up loans they will spend years paying off. The Federal Reserve's 2025 report on household finances found that Gen Z carries more high-interest debt per capita than any generation at the same life stage in the last 50 years. Credit card balances, buy now, pay later debt, personal loans. And the cruel irony is that the riskier financial behavior driven by nihilism is often creating the very financial instability it was reacting to. There is also a mental health dimension that gets almost no attention. Financial anxiety is the leading reported stressor for adults under 30 in the United States. And the pattern researchers are seeing is troubling. When people feel financially hopeless, they are more likely to engage in financially reckless behavior, not less. The very hopelessness
creates a feedback loop that deepens the problem. So yes, financial nihilism is dangerous. But blaming young people for it without acknowledging what created it is not just unfair, it is useless.
So where does this go? There are three possibilities. The first is that nothing changes, and financial nihilism becomes generational infrastructure, a permanent feature of how Gen Z, and eventually Gen Alpha, relates to money. That means more volatility in markets driven by retail speculation, more household financial fragility, and a deeper social divide between people who inherited assets and people who did not. The second possibility is that the system adapts. Some economists and policy experts are already arguing for things like expanded access to employer-matched savings, stronger first homebuyer programs, student loan reform, and financial education that actually starts with the broken realities young people face, not the idealized version of the economy from 1990.
And the third possibility, the one that nobody predicted but keeps showing up in data, is that Gen Z's relationship with risk actually reshapes finance itself. Think about it. This generation has normalized decentralized finance, prediction markets, micro-investing, and community-driven investment strategies at a scale no prior generation attempted. If even a fraction of that energy gets channeled into legitimate long-term vehicles, if the platforms evolve, if the policy environment shifts, this generation could actually build wealth in ways that look nothing like what their parents did. Not through savings accounts and 30-year mortgages, but through entirely new financial architectures that have not been fully invented yet. That is either terrifying or exciting, depending on where you are standing.
Financial nihilism is not a trend. It is a symptom. It is what happens when a generation does everything they were told to do, studies hard, works hard, stays informed, and looks around to find that the finish line moved. Kyla Scanlon said it best. When people treat the economy like a game, traditional winning no longer feels real. And maybe the real question is not, how do we fix Gen Z's relationship with money? Maybe the real question is, what kind of economy actually deserves their trust? Because until that question gets a real answer, the meme coins will keep moving. The prediction markets will keep growing. And a generation of some of the smartest, most digitally capable people in history will keep looking for a cheat code in a game they never agreed to play. If this video made you think differently about something, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want more economic analysis that actually treats you like an adult, subscribe. We have a lot more to cover.